Good morning, and a good morning to those of you watching or listening to this at home. We are celebrating what's called the Feast of All Saints, having had a very different Halloween last night, unless you got geysers. I certainly didn't. And where my grandchildren live, a couple went round handing out Halloween boxes to the kids, rather than the kids going to their door and having to do trick and treat. So, we are here to think about the saints. In Luke's Gospel, Jesus called together the disciples and a great multitude to a level place. There he touched, healed, and taught. And there he spoke the words that start, "Blessed are." There he named the blessed, the saints of the faith. O God, call us together as you did so long ago to discover your blessed people. Today, in this place, Christ, gather us in. Gather us so we may remember, confess, celebrate, and embody the blessed saints of God. Christ, come among us. The words of "For All the Saints," if you read them in the hymn book and sing them as you remember them, are very militaristic. So I came across this version of "For All the Saints," written by a lady called Marnie Barrell in 1992, and so I'm going to try and read them along as Netta plays the tune. For all the saints who from their labours rest, who to the world their faith in God confessed. Your name, O Jesus, be forever blessed. Alleluia. Alleluia. You are their leader, true, unfailing light, column of cloud by day and fire by night. Known in the dark by faith, though lost from sight. Alleluia. Alleluia. So may your people still their footsteps trace, fired by their triumphs in the well-run race. Longing with them to see your glorious face. Alleluia. Alleluia. Soon dawns the promised day of Christ our Lord, when all creation rises up restored, and all our song from heart and soul outpoured. Alleluia. Alleluia. From every age, from dawn to setting sun, home come the saints to God, the Three-in-One, bringing eternal praise on earth begun. Alleluia, alleluia. Let us pray. In all our weakness and strength, with our youth-filled spirits and aging bodies, we come to be your people, Father God, strong in faith and eager with questions, wanting to sing our praise, but only able to whisper our prayers. We come to be your people, Father God. Filled with saintly determination, yet mindful of our human limitations, we come to be your people, Father God. Made strong in your endless love for us, we know ourselves to be yours, and we come to be your people, Father God. So may we truly become your people today as we say together the words that Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. In keeping with going for alternative words to well-known hymns, I've also found some alternative words to the Matthew's version of the Beatitudes. Words written with an idea of being intergenerational, of linking together young and old. Listen for God's word. Blessed are the saints who trust God's power and loving care, for they are part of the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the saints when they are sad, because the world is so unfair. They have God's promise that justice will come. Blessed are the nobodies who know that they are nobodies and still do God's work. In God's world, they are the leaders. Blessed are the saints whose greatest wish is to do what God desires. God will give them what they want. Blessed are the saints who treat other people gently. God will treat them gently. Blessed are the saints who get into trouble when they do what God requires, for they are surely among God's saints. Let's be reminded of the tune to Heaven Shall Not Wait. Heaven shall not wait for the poor to lose their patience, the scorned to smile, the despised to find a friend. Jesus is Lord. He has championed the unwanted. In him, injustice confronts its timely end. Heaven shall not wait for the rich to share their fortunes, the proud to fall, the elite to tend the least. Jesus is Lord. He has shown the master's privilege to kneel and wash servants' feet before they feast. There is a story about two brothers who did their level best to rule the roost in the village in which they lived, by all means nefarious and approaching criminal, if not beyond criminal. Well, when the older brother died, the younger brother went to see the minister of the parish church and said, "You've to do the service for my brother, and you've to tell everybody what a saint he was." The minister thought about it for a very long time and thought, how can I say that this man was a saint? He did all manner of bad things. He upset just about everybody in the village. He was no saint. But then the younger brother said, "And if you do it well enough, there'll be £100,000 for the church roof." So the minister got up at the service and started the eulogy and said, "There are those who will find it amazing that I am going to describe this man as being a saint. But compared to his younger brother, he most certainly was." The past few months has seen many saints emerge as we face all the misery that the COVID-19 virus could bring to people all over the world. There are saints, folk who gave their lives in the early stages, working in substandard protective equipment to try to alleviate the suffering of the earliest of victims. Amongst those saints were included a higher than average proportion of doctors and nurses from the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic population. And many of these medical people were not Christians. They may have been members of other faith communities, or they may have had no faith at all. But still, they gave their lives in the National Health Service, hospitals, and in care homes. They probably would never have in their lifetimes considered themselves saints. But to me, their actions were definitely the actions of saints. So, let's get one thing out of the way. Saints are not necessarily just really good Christians from long ago. They're not just made up of disciples and apostles, of leaders of the early church, of martyrs, of folk who gave their lives rather than abandon their Christian faith. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not belittling what they did, but they are just one part of the great company of women and men who deserve to be hailed as saints. Staff in hospitals and care homes follow in the tradition of the church, because the foundation of many hospitals, and they were called almshouses in those days, but care homes, were set up by the church. And it was only comparatively recently that that role has been passed on to civic society. But caring for the sick and elderly is as much a profession of faith as a profession to earn a salary or a wage. Witness the dedication of carers, doing the very best for those that they were looking after, often at the expense of their own health and even lives. Think of the nurses who moved out of their family homes into budget hotels close to the hospital where they worked to avoid passing on to their families any infection they might pick up in the wards, and vice versa. They might not have sacrificed their lives, but their sacrifices were real enough for me to say that we should include them in the list of saints of 2020. And I don't think that any of these people being included is all that contentious. After all, these are the folk that we went out and stood on our doorsteps or front gardens and clapped for every Thursday evening in the spring. But I don't think we clap for enough folk. Because caring for the sick and elderly is but one of the ways in which people have displayed saint-like qualities this year. Last week we focused on how to love our neighbours, and many people went the extra mile to show care for their neighbours. They offered to shop for them, to cook for them, to chat with them, to get them their medicines, and a whole lot more. We became a kinder society almost overnight last March. But regrettably, some of that kindness hasn't lasted. Some of that thinking of others has gone by the board, as we saw on, Thursday night or Friday night, young folk in Nottingham being the latest folk to have a big party because they weren't going to be able to the next day. So, we need to add to this list of saints the names of good neighbours. Now, it remains to be seen whether certain world and civic leaders should join this list. Some are considered to have been doing a good job, while others are accused of lining their own pockets and the pockets of their chums and relatives. But there are some people in positions of authority who've come across as being worthy of being included in this catalogue of the righteous. I would think that New Zealand's Prime Minister seems to have shown such good leadership in that country's fight against coronavirus. And the people of New Zealand seem to have agreed with that, in that last month her party achieved a resounding and unprecedented victory in the general election that they held. Another person I would like to include in that list is Professor Jason Leach. His demeanour demonstrates his deep Christian faith. He is, after all, a leading member of Airdrie Baptist Church, and before the pandemic meant that he was basically living at his desk, would often lead worship there. I don't question Jason's integrity. I've seen and heard him in 2 Zoom presentations, one to the Boys Brigade, from young kids in Anchor Boys up to the oldest leaders, one of whom is sitting in the front row, and to others. The other presentation he gave was to ministers, children's and youth workers in the church. And he's been excellent in these smaller gatherings. But it is when the First Minister turns to him to provide a clinical perspective on how to keep as many of the population safe that he demonstrates his worthiness to go onto that list of saints. Because in Jason there's no side. In Jason there's no political agenda. He is providing what he's been asked for: good, professional advice. And he's provided it effectively, succinctly, and with clarity. Our list of 2020 saints is filling up fast, but I've not finished yet. Recall what happened in March and April. Most of the shops were shut, and the few that were allowed to open had one-way systems and limited the number of customers permitted in the store at the same time. It's still true today, but the difference as I see it is now that there are more perspex enclosures to keep the staff safe that weren't there in March and April. The workers who kept the essential shops open go onto the list, as do those folk who staffed the click and collect and delivery service, who suddenly had 10 times the amount of work to do because folk were rightly not going to the shops, either out of fear or out of care for their neighbour and themselves. And add to that list, as we, those of us who were still working, had jobs suddenly that we either couldn't do or couldn't travel to do, some folk had to go out. They had to keep working. They had to keep the lights on. They had to keep the shops stocked. They had to keep the bins emptied. Some teachers had to keep working, effectively providing daycare for the children of the essential workers. Let's think about the council workers whose real jobs weren't needed, who volunteered for other duties, including supporting the staff of bereavement care at the crematorium. Who else might we include? We'll leave that for you to decide. Perhaps you might include folk like Marcus Rashford, the young footballer who is campaigning to make sure that every child got a meal, particularly in times of school holidays when they were dependent on free school meals for a wholesome meal each day. Or perhaps the people and companies that his campaign inspired to carry on and feed children during the school holidays. You may be thinking about community groups opening facilities to help others in many different ways. Your thoughts might be more personal, and you're thinking words of thanks and appreciation that you're expressing to God for the family member, the neighbour, or the carer who helped you personally. And what does God make of this list, which you'll by now have realised is amounting to thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of people, good people, who've demonstrated that they truly do love their neighbour? God blesses them. Blessed, the word in the Greek is makarios. And I think I've told you before that makarios was originally translated in the King James Version as blessed. But then the Good News Bible changed it to happy. Whereas if you go back to the roots of the word makarios, it's actually more to do with encouraged and empowered. God encourages and empowers folk who are going that extra mile, who are being the saints. Or by being the saints who've given their lives, encourage others to try and be a bit more saintly. God thanks them for what they have done for his children, you and me. And God will do what he can to enrich the lives of their saints because of what they have done, because they may even have risked their own lives in the service of the neighbour. They will hear God say to them, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." Whether they did what they did out of religious obligation, out of duty, out of a response to the call of society or God, in my mind, they are counted amongst the saints, living or dead. I want to take you through a meditation. There'll be the occasional time of a short period of silence as we think about this idea of the saints. God, our Creator, thank you for the gift of Jesus. He walked among us, embodying your creative and life-giving word in his body, his life, his words, his deeds, his sufferings, his death, and his resurrection. When we see him loving the outcast, forgiving the sinner, confronting the hypocrite, and teaching the crowds a new way of life, we see your heart, your compassion, your mercy, your character. To know Jesus is to love him, and to love him is to know you, and to know and love him is to know and love you. So help us, Lord, to be amongst your disciples who come to you to be taught. Help us, Lord, to be amongst the poor in spirit, to see and know that your kingdom is our homeland, even now. Help us, Lord, to be amongst those who mourn, to join you in your sadness for all the wrong and broken in this world, and in joining you to find true comfort. Help us, Lord, to be amongst the meek, those who find strength in weakness and power in vulnerability, to never fear lack or want, because when we have your love, we have all the world. Help us, Lord, to desire justice, righteousness, goodness, fairness, cleanness, clearness, and integrity more than we hunger for food or thirst for water. And so let us find the truest fulfillment and satisfaction. Help us, Lord, to be amongst the merciful. Help us to be true friends to those who are hated, misunderstood, rejected, excluded, or disregarded, just as you, merciful God, are. When others fail, when they fail us, help us to show the same mercy you show to those who fail you, including ourselves. Help us, Lord, to be amongst the pure in heart. May your pure light shine in our hearts and dispel every shadow, every layer and fold that conceals or pretends. Since it is only the heart that sees you, remove from our hearts everything that keeps us from seeing you. Help us, Lord, to be amongst the makers of peace. Many bring walls, build walls. Many sow fear and distrust. Many spread rumors. Many inflame conflict and profit for us from it. Help us to be, even amongst them, agents and messengers of your peace and reconciliation. And so we may bear your family likeness, God of peace. Help us, Lord, not to fear being amongst the persecuted, but rather to rejoice in having the honor of standing for your restorative justice and righteousness. So we will see that your kingdom is our homeland, even now. Help us, Lord, to be amongst those who suffer wrong well and with grace. Help us not to resent it, not to fear it, not to seek to escape from it. Instead, help us to find joy in it. When others insult us, make our lives more difficult, or falsely malign us because of you, help us to see through the momentary light trouble to the lasting and weighty reward. Even now, for your kingdom comes by suffering rather than by making others suffer. So help us, Lord, to be amongst your disciples who come to you to be taught. We are limping, broken sinners and beginners, far from these realities, but this is where we want to go. In your mercy, lead us in this path. Amen. We're going to hear the tune of Father of Peace and God of Love. Father of peace and God of love, we own your power to save, that power by which our shepherd rose, victorious o'er the grave. Him from the dead you brought again, when by his sacred blood, confirmed and sealed for evermore, the eternal covenant stood. O may your Spirit seal our souls and mould them to your will, that our weak hearts no more may stray, but keep your precepts still. That to perfection's sacred height we nearer still may rise, and all we think and all we do be pleasing in your eyes. Well, one of the things we do that I think that would be pleasing in God's eyes is bringing so far 80 shoeboxes. We're nearly at the sort of level that we've struggled to get to with lots of work when we were able to come together all through the summer and haven't been able to. So, we've got more stuff, but we haven't got any boxes to put them in. So if you've got any empty shoeboxes, you can bring them along next Sunday. And if you've got any soap or men's socks, preferably not the ones you're wearing today, you can bring them next Sunday, because the collection's not going to be until the second week in the month, so we've got a wee bit extra time. And if you happen to have a filled shoebox, you can bring that as well. Perhaps with a little bit of effort, we'll make it into 3 figures. But don't forget the food bank. There are still people in Falkirk who are going hungry and determined to keep their lives going by making pleas to the food bank for help. Next Sunday's service is the Remembrance Sunday service. It will be at 10 o'clock, but it will not be running until 11. There will be a short time of silence during the service, but the main 11 o'clock time of silence, there is a suggestion from the Royal British Legion that that should be held on your doorstep. So instead of going out and clapping for the health service, you can go out and stand in silence at 11 o'clock next Sunday, whether you're coming to church or not, because there should be time after the service to get home for 11 if you don't stand and blether, which you're not meant to. If you are coming to church, I've got a list of all the people here, but if you're intending to pass the details of the service on to anybody else, please get in touch with Jim or myself so that we can add you to the list in case we get a lot of people suddenly turning up. It's a service where traditionally we would have a full house, not just because the Boys and Girls Brigade members are present, but because some of them bring their families. So the captains of the Boys and Girls Brigades will be representing the companies and will be laying the wreaths on our behalf, but I've no idea how many other people might turn up. We have put in the Falkirk Herald that we would like people to book for this next Sunday's service, but if you pass that on to anybody who says, oh, I was thinking of coming to the church for the remembrance service, because there won't be things at war memorials and so on, because public gatherings in the open are not allowed. There's going to be a newsletter going out in a couple of weeks' time. If you've got any items to put in it, I got something from Charlie last week. I've got something to write. I've got one or two lists, and there will be communion carried out in much the same way as we did last month. So we won't need duties for that or folk to wash the silver. So there will be communion at the end of this month. So have you got anything? Has anybody given you anything, Morag? Okay, well, if you can email or pass that on to me so I can put it all together and print it off. Hopefully it's not going to be too many pages, because my printer takes a long time these days. It's getting old, like a lot of us. And if anybody else has got any items and hasn't got it written down for me, they could email it to me, preferably so that I can deal with it in the week to come. But we've got time. They'll be available for distribution 2 weeks today. And these are, I think, all of the intimations to share with you. So let us pray. This week's service is all about all the saints. So let's pray for them. For all the saints who went before us, who spoke into our hearts and touched us with your fire, we praise you, Father God. For all the saints who live beside us, whose weaknesses and strengths are woven with our own, we praise you, Father God. For all the saints who live beyond us, who challenge us to change the world with them, we praise you, Father God. For all the saints who do whatever they can for the good of others, we praise and thank you, Father God. We're now going to see if I can manage to speak along with the tune to Children of God. Children of God, reach out to one another. Where pity dwells, the peace of God is there. To worship rightly is to love each other. Each smile a hymn, each kindly deed a prayer. Follow with reverent steps the great example of him whose holy work was doing good. So shall the wide earth seem our Father's temple, each loving life a psalm of gratitude. We pray again. You give us life, Father God. You give us a beautiful and bountiful planet to live in. You give us saints who guide and support us in so many different ways. You give us so much. So we ask you to accept tokens of our appreciation, some of our money, some of our time, some of the love we give to you and our neighbours. Bless us that we may be a blessing to others. So please now, behind your masks, quietly repeat the words of our offering verse. All that I am, all that I do, all that I'll ever have, I offer now to you. Take and sanctify these gifts for your honour, Lord, knowing that I love and serve you is enough reward. All that I do. All that I'll ever have, I offer now to you. God's people have celebrated all that God has done, from creation to the cross, to the saints who've lived among us. Now we go from this place to the workplace, the home place, the marketplace, every living place as God's own people. And may the blessing of God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit be with us and with all whom we love, today, tomorrow, and forevermore. I believe that Jimmy would like to say something about what went on Tuesday.